sports law experts in Africa. The competition is founded by Pius Oduboku, an international sports lawyer who has handled numerous football disputes before the FIFA Football Tribunal, as well as novel cases before the Court of Arbitration for Sports, CAS. He recently was in Budapest for the Football Law annual review. He is online with us, nonetheless. We shall be able to hear from him as he is still currently engaged, probably much later on. He will let us know how things are going with FLAM. But maybe just to give you a sneak peek on what FLAM is up to in the year 2026. Very exciting it is. For those of you that follow FLAM or intend to, you can go to the socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, as well as X, Footballer and Yomut. As of February, there was a big announcement, the grand announcement of the 2026 Footballer and Yomut. It's the 3rd edition. Registration is now open. It opened on the 20th of February and will close on the 6th of April 2026. The key topic therein for this year is professional or amateur, the legal consequences of player status in modern football. That will be a competition for university students that have the interest in sports law. And probably for those that are already online with us, it takes us into that conversation, the discussion for today, which is who is a professional re-examining player status under the FIFA regulations. Now, who will be talking us through that? Mr. Francesco Macri, an international sports lawyer and arbitrator. Should I say much about him? Absolutely, yes. He is an Italian lawyer registered with the Piacenza Bar Association. He primarily focuses on law and sports law. He has been in the business since 1993. Wow, that's very, very exciting. And 20 years later, probably 10 years later rather, he was called upon to serve as a member of the panels of the arbitrators for dispute resolution between football players and clubs of the Italian Leg Serie A and Serie B. In 2016, he was appointed as an arbitrator at the CAS tribunal, where he has recently confirmed for 2023 and 2026 on the CAS general list and football list. He is also a member of the Federal Court of Appeal of the Italian Fencing Federation and is currently president of the Federal Court of the Italian Badminton Federation. He has also dedicated his time to teaching as a contract professor at a university in Rome. He also runs a labor law in sports programs and as well a lecturer at the Master in International Sports Law at ISDE in Madrid and the University of Applied Sciences and Arts of Southern Switzerland. A man that has quite a wealth of knowledge, and he will be taking us through the session here today, who is a professional, re-examining player status under the FIFA regulations. Mr. Francesco Macri, you are welcome, and we are all ears on what you have for us this evening.
Thank you, Leon. So your presentation was quite, let's say, embarrassing for me, but okay. I'm very happy to be here, and of course, very, very happy to spend this hour with you all. And not happy about your comment on the date of my on the date of my football involvement, because 1993 is of course means that I'm quite old, but I will try to give you my best. So I will try to give you my best in this presentation. So of course, football, professional and amateur, is a big question, and I will try to lead you through the interpretation of the rule, the meaning of the rule, through the sense of the words that we can find in the regulations, and through, of course, the decision of the FIFA Tribunal and CAS. it goes by itself that it is very easy to understand that when we have a rule, we should apply the rule, and of course it is very important when what we find in the case. So not every case is the same, and of course not every case is the same, since maybe we can find new evidence, we can find different evidence, we can find, of course, a different way of presentation the evidence, which is very important. And it is also important to understand the value of the counsel and the value of the way to present the evidence. Basically, my intention is to give you some advice through the regulation, give you some example of jurisprudence, and at the end of the presentation we can have a discussion on some cases, on some, let's say, some particular issues that maybe you need to address, or you need to tackle in the end of the discussion. Let me start with the presentation. Of course, the presentation it's only a starting point, so feel free to stop me, and feel free to ask during the presentation or at the end of it. Let me, so I don't know how to, probably have to share the screen, and hopefully I will find it. Sorry, because my here we go. Okay. So can you see the first slide? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so it's easy to start from the article, from the regulation. So we need to address this topic, and Article 2 of the FIFA regulation RSTP says the following, and players participating in organized football are either amateurs and or professional. And Article 2 is a player who has a written contract with a club and is paid for more than for his footballing activity than the expenses he effectively incurs. These two provisions have a very important consequence. This is the index of my presentation. More or less, this is what I want to cover with it, and this is the regulatory framework. So what we have to take into consideration, we need to address if a player is an amateur or a professional. So of course, the primary source is the FIFA regulation. Then we have the FIFA commentary, the circulars of FIFA, and the decision from the FIFA tribunal, the decision from CAS, and of course the domestic law. Concerning the domestic law, I will address you with some additional point, because domestic law are important only for the contract validity, and because you know, irrespective of what you call in your countries, amateur players, there are FIFA recognizes only two categories: amateur and professional. So this is what we have to take into account. And why we need to address the player status. Of course, this is the first thing is from a regulatory scope, because of course, you know, if you are a professional, this means that there is contract stability, transfer system, and so on, financial effect, and training compensation, solidarity, and the disputes, which is the tribunal, where we have to bring our dispute, and what are the topics that we have to submit to the tribunal. And again, of course, the compliance risk, from my point of view, is very important. Misclassification, liability, and sport disciplinary exposure, because, you know, let's say if a player is not an amateur as we pretend to be, and instead is a professional, of course, you understand that if you don't pay the monetary sanction, or if you don't pay any other issue related to the contract, probably you will incur in a disciplinary sanction. So this is very important to understand where we are. So let's move to the very first topic, with a professional player. So the regulation says basically two things: written contract with the club, and is paid more than the expenses. This is important to remember. And the written contract is something we should discuss about the existence, the signature, the duration, enforceability. Very, very often is we have to discuss about the contract, because, you know, the contract may be also an exchange of emails. There may be an issue of a signature that could be real or could be false, could be forgery, and no, and the duration of the contract, and of course the enforceability, because the enforceability is very important, because it all depends on the national systems. Because you know, you have a contract, you have a written contract. Where I have to go? I have to go to the national court. Can I go to the FIFA tribunal or not? Remember, of course, that if you want to go to the FIFA tribunal, you have to file your claim in a separate way, in a certain way, and then of course it is very important to understand which is the piece of paper that we have before. And the remuneration test is very important, because of course we have to we are in front of a balance between let's say the expenses that we have to face day by day, and the benefits that we receive from the contract. And in this case, we need to understand if the amount of money that is provided in the contract is can be understood as a real reimbursement of expenses, or instead is something that is more than an expensive, and I would say it is a remuneration. Of course, this is an evaluation and assessment that we should do case by case. And on the other side, of course, it is a residual understanding. The amateur is a player that does not meet the criteria of a professional. So the reimbursement of the expenses, the limited allowances, or any other, it all depends on the value of the contract from my point of view. Let me take you to the very first case that I think it is can probably will explain better than me the importance of understanding this difference. This is a very recent case, and between player and an African club. And of course, in this case, you see that there was a dispute because the player pretended to be a professional, and the club on the other side said, no, you are an amateur. And in this case, the arbitration, the sole arbitrator considered that the contract, the value of the contract, and of course the remuneration provided therein was the key issue, and irrespective of the registration of the player as an amateur. This doesn't mean anything for the sole arbitrator. It has no value. The value, and this is very important, the first, let's say, takeaway from this day is that the remuneration is the key issue, and at the end of his reasoning, the sole arbitrators concluded that you see, any contract must be measured against the Article 2, Paragraph 2 criteria only, irrespective of any designation or categorization used within the contract. So therefore, the player is a professional. This is because the regulation recognized only two categories of players, and let's say again, amateur or professional. You see that this is just let's say an example. In England we can find the scholars, or in France you can find the stagiaires, or in Italy you can find the, let's say, the so-called giovani di serie, or the clubs amateur in Germany. This doesn't matter. Where you go before the FIFA tribunal, or where you go before CAS, you have only two categories of players, and this is confirmed by some other decision that I thought it was important to show you. So this move, we can move to the core test. So I understand that we should assess the value of the contract. So what means identify cash, bonuses, signing payments, per diems, housing, tuition, insurance, and you have to compare the benefits that you have in your contract with the benefits with the expenses that you effectively incur. So this means that it doesn't matter if you receive $1 million for as expenses. The important issue is to understand what were your effective expenses. So this is very so remember, this is important because if you don't do this comparison, probably you will lose the case, because you will go you can't use only the words. So you can't use the words of the contract to advise your client. You have to instead you have to use the documents. That you have to use, of course, any evidence that could be useful to convince the tribunal that the player was an amateur. So this was the expense that effectively incurred in, you know. In this process, you have to use, of course, the receipts, bank transfer, payrolls, witness statements, of course, any kind of evidence that should be useful to access the key point. So, which is the comparison between the expenses that you effectively incur and the expenses that you have in your contract. This is very important. So this is another word, 2020 A66796. And again, the issue in this case was what I was presenting to you 1 minute ago. The factor, you see, the only relevant factor is whether the amount received by the player exceeds the expenses effectively incurred. The expenses to be considered and compared are not those relating to the player's general cost of living, but those specifically and effectively incurred for the footballing activity. So this is and I think that it is important to quote a passage of the word. So you see that in this case, the panel found that the player's expenses exceeded his remuneration received from the club. And whether the Malagese League is an amateur league is found of no decisive relevance to this decision. So again, the expenses is the key element of the decision, and this must be kept in mind. So the first conclusion is that substance over form, of course. So when you go before FIFA, or when you go before CAS, probably sorry, I did a mistake. So when you go before FIFA or you go before CAS, you will be asked to provide the panels with some evidence that you think are important for your position. Of course, you are. I don't know if you are advising an amateur players which is pretending to be a professional, or on the other side, you are advising a club which is convinced and wants to convince the panel that the player is a real amateur and not a professional. So because of course there are a lot of consequences from the decision of the tribunal. And in this case, again, which are the indicators of professionalism? Fixed payments, appearance bonuses, benefits, and obligation, let's say, like, very resembling the employment, full-time schedule, exclusivity included, and so on. If you, which are the legal consequences of this classification? So again, concerning the contracts, you will have to face salary claims, breach, remedies. You know, if you are a professional, you can and you go before FIFA, or you go before CAS. Probably you will have a lot of consequences. Very tough for the club, and there is also consequences on the transfers regulations and the transfer regime, because you will have to face the ITC and transfer windows and so on, and compensation mechanism, because if you are professional, you have to pay training compensation to the previous amateur clubs, and so many consequences that financial and of course disciplinary, in case you don't comply with the decision of the tribunal. Evidence in these disputes: written contracts, annexes, payment schedules, receipts, bank transfer, cash pattern, third-party players, and training complication, and so on. So many evidence that could help you to support your position, to support your claim, and it is important that your role as a counsel, and your skill to find any of this evidence. So I tried also to give you some practical example, and we can talk about this example. We'll just introduce you, and then we can discuss at the end of this presentation. The first one, let's say the player signs an amateur agreement. Club pays €600 per month, labor expense reimbursement, no receipts. The training is 5 days a week and match obligation. So start thinking if if the player is a professional or an amateur. So this is let's say one of the example. The second example is another game. You have a youth player registered as an amateur, and the club provides apartment, car, covers tuition, no cash salary, and there is a written scholarship agreement, which in the balance of the probability, which is what is more important, and the amount of the scholarship agreements, the amount of the benefits. I mean benefits. I mean apartment, cars, and so on, or the fact. The simple fact that is that the player is registered as an amateur. So again, And in this case, I found a decision of the FIFA DRC. And sorry, but I made a mistake because I let me just okay. This is this is easier to be aware. So in this case, we have a dispute between two clubs. So the decision is important, let's say indirectly, because it is important for the consequence of the decision of the tribunal. And so we have two contracts. We have two clubs. A French club, which is a second division club and an amateur, and sorry, can you still hear me? Because I think
we can actually hear you. We just don't see the slides moving.
Okay, okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. Okay. So because I thought my earphones were expiring. Okay. So in this case, we have a French club, second division club, and a first division club, English first division club. So what happened? The player was transferred from the French club to the English club, and the French club said, "Oh, we are amateur." So the player was registered for the English club as a professional. We want a training compensation. So in this case, I would say that the English club was very able to provide evidence that since the very beginning, so since the player was with the French club, he received a remuneration that was not an amateur remuneration, I would say, but a remuneration for a professional player. And in this case, so the decision of the DRC was is highlighted in black, and is that the claimant was not entitled to the training compensation, as this was the subsequent transfer of a professional. In this case, so the player was a professional at the French second division. And notwithstanding the status, since we have to remember that the regulation does not take into consideration the status. And this was the reasoning of the judge, of the FIFA judge. So the respondent contested the claim, arguing that the player had already been a professional player with the former club. There was a witness statement of the player where it was stated that the second club division provides the necessary training facilities, training session, home and away matches, and travel transplantation comps. So let's say I would say that a life as a professional player. And in this case, so the player that you see, the judge concluded that the player was already a professional when he was registered with the former club. And this is a very interesting case from my point of view. So the first, of course, let's say hypothetical, we don't have a contract, or better, the club denies a contract. A contract is 1,200 euro through a third party, and the player produces an unsigned draft contract, WhatsApp messages, and bank statements. So what will happen, from my point of view, you should remember that also WhatsApp messages can be taken into account to assess if we are in front of a contract or not. because contracts should not be, of course, should not be should not be necessarily written in a formal document or in a formal way, but can be also something that can be drawn also through an exchange of messages. And so this could be very, but if what if the signatures, for example, is missing, and so this is a very hypothetical case, but this is what can happen, and very happy to discuss about it. And so we have some gray areas from my point of view, and because you know there is what we know, the semi-professional ecosystem. For example, I would say that in Italy we have this kind of area, and is what for example, in other parts of the world is called the apprenticeship, but in Italy is considered something like semi-professional. So it's very important to understand this kind of contract in light of the regulation of FIFA, which is not changed. And but it's very important to understand that the system changes and the regulation no, I would say, or better, or better is the system in this case that has to be adapted to the regulation. And again, we have a lot of new situation concerning the academies, the scholarships, cross-border moves, and so on. And the woman football ecosystem is changing, is growing, and then we have to understand if women are amateurs or professional, and again any other patterns. Let's say, for example, image rights and regulatory tension would be very important. So from my point of view. And let's move to some key takeaways. Again, this is from my point of view the key takeaways. Of course, you are very you are free to suggest any other, because I do not pretend to be to be satisfactory. And but from my point of view, let's say in Article 2 we have two key elements: written contract and the remuneration beyond expenses. And this is without doubts what we have to face with. And then there is, of course, substance prevails over label, because irrespective of what you write in the contract, we need to understand what things are going on in fact, and not not in the contract. And so therefore we need evidence and documentation. If you are advising your client, take in mind that you need to let's say have a list of your key issues, which are, from my point of view, registration, payments, obligation, and this element could be useful to assess the value of your stipends, the value of your benefits, and could be useful to assess all the elements and understand if you are before a professional or an amateur. And again, this is let's say a checklist. Of course, when you are advising your client, this is from my point of view, a checklist that you can use and could be very useful to for the consequences, because if you go through this checklist, you can identify, or let's say it could help you to identify if you are again before an amateur or before a professional. Remember, burden of proof. If you are pretending to be a professional, the burden of proof is on you. And on the other side, if you are pretending that there is no contract, for example, you are a clapper, you are pretending that there is no contract, there is no registration, the burden of proof is on you. And I would say that the burden of proof, the standard of proof is comfortable satisfaction of the tribunal. So this means that we are not in front of the standard of proof for strict liability, but this means that probably you will have will not be called to provide a very tough evidence, but in any case, the burden of proof again is on you. And again, key evidence in practice, again, in bank transfer, expense receipt, emails, messages, housing CAS. So any kind of evidence you can use to support your position. The structure of your claim. So if you are the claimant, define what you are asking for. You are asking for salary, you're asking for status classification, you're asking for compensation. Establish jurisdiction, which is your judge. You have to understand very carefully which is your job, and then you have to prove your the facts. You have to apply the Article 2, and again you have to demonstrate your position. So this is a of course I thought this was useful for those of you that want to file, want to present their want to participate to the competition. So this is very important from my point of view. This is what I was telling to you before. The standard of proof is comfortable satisfaction. Let's say higher mere balance of probabilities, but lower than criminal standards. So remember, this is let's say some key issue that could be very useful when you will prepare your written submission during the competition. And of course, the hierarchy, the evidence, the hierarchy of the evidence. So the very first place is the first position, the documentary evidence, the financial proof, payment patterns, and the witness statement. So please remember that witness statements and assertion are at the lower stages. This is because, of course, when you go before FIFA, when you go before CAS, written evidence are very, very often prefer to witness statements. Or if we can't say prefer, we should say that written evidence are viewed in a better way and than the written statements. But of course, if you only have written statements on your side, use them and then try to convince the panel that they are decisive for the outcome of your case. So again, some real case pattern. Let's say this quiz remuneration, player registered as an amateur, receive fixed monthly payments, no receipts, and the player, from my point of view, is a professional. Benefits: club provide housing and vehicle, no formal salary paid. Market value of benefits, the assessment of the market value of benefits is important for the panel, and of course the outcome is not so sure as in the first example. It all depends on the proportionality and the evidence, and we need to understand if the benefits are more than the salary. And last case, contracts versus registration status. Again, please remember that the decision of the FIFA Tribunal or CAS is based only on the evidence, is based only on factual consistency, not on the status of the player. The status of the player is something that comes as a consequence of the evidence and not as the first step to understand the real status of the player. So in this presentation, I put several decisions of the tribunals. In any decision, the status of the players is always, let's say, in a lower position to the documentary outcome of the case. So I am at the end of this presentation. Of course, I leave. I think it was very important to leave some room for your question. I try to summarize all process. Some of the outcome of the decision of the tribunals, and of course of course I try to summarize the outcome of the jurisprudence and the regulation in this moment. So I will stop the presentation and then leave the floor to you. Sorry for my voice because it's very okay. I'm okay.
All right, great. Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Francesco, for that wonderful presentation. I could only ask that maybe you could put back the presentation, because I think the case studies that you presented, or hypothetical at that, case study one and case study two, I think reflect quite well on how from the continent players are held at clubs. The cut between whether they are professional or amateur And I think with case study 1, you made mention of a player signing in quote unquote amateur agreement, but the club pays, in this case, let's say 600 euros monthly, and it is being labeled as expense reimbursement. And then I think in case study 2, you highlighted a case where a youth player is registered as an amateur, but the club covers tuition and no cash salary, and it is also labeled as a scholarship agreement. I think these are critical examples that we see within our clubs on the continent, in some parts of the continent. And disguisingly, maybe either, life goes on as amateur, but with the qualifications that you have put out here, it brings to the question the likelihood of these kind of people or players being professionals. And again, that prompts the question, how would you value in-kind benefits and prove that they are not expenses? For instance, for a player that has been signed as an amateur and the club provides an apartment, a car, and covers tuition, would you, from your perspective, would this fall within the elements of this amateur player being a professional, this regardless of them being labeled as an amateur by the club?
Thank you, Leon, for your question. Very interesting. Yeah, my point of view is that the assessment of the benefits of the player should be made in a word. So I understand that if we are in presence of a player which receives, let's say, as you said, apartment, house, apartment, car, and so on. So we have to consider all the elements of that are at the disposal of the player. So not, for example, for the case, for example, in the case, we don't have a very clear remuneration. We don't have a very amount of money indicated as a remuneration, but we know that the player receives house, cars, and so on. So I would assess everything. I would consider everything, and then, of course, the outcome of this assessment could be in favor of being the player as a professional or not. It all depends on the fact that, okay, how much does the player need to live? How much does the player need to enjoy for let's say his footballing activity? All the other benefits that are not related to the footballing activity, from my point of view, could be benefits that lead the player to be qualified as a professional and not an amateur. This is my point of view.
Oh, wonderful. By the look of things, and
of course, it all depends. It all depends on case by case. So I would say,
true. And by the look of things, the classification of the players that, well, maybe from my country, on whether they are amateur or professional is a bit of a difficult one, because quite often you find that what they get paid for doing their football activities is far less than what they actually use on a daily. So, well, these guys they're in as professional players or otherwise is would be one that is interesting to dig deep into. Would love to hear from you though. Any other person with a question, a comment, possibly on how the disputes can be dealt with, maybe further. In regard to the classification of a player as professional or amateur, and specific to the clubs that hold school that hold younger players in the guise of a scholarship they're in. Would love to hear from you. A message would be very great. In the message chat box there, would be glad to hear from you. Or even still, you could raise your hand and present your question to Mr. Francesco Macri. No questions at that? Well,
probably they are. I don't know if they are satisfied or not.
very, very likely all of them are professional players, so they meet the billing. But nonetheless, if there are no questions that are coming through, I would just like to remind you that why FLAM has started with this particular topic is because it forms the basis of what will be this year's Football Law Annual Moot. It's the 3rd edition. Continental it goes. Registration is now open from the 20th of February to the 6th of April. Of course, the FLAM Moot is Africa's premier football law moot. The competition now returns bigger, sharper, and more competitive. You could check out on our socials, Football Law Annual Moot on Instagram, LinkedIn, X therein, and also check out a few videos on YouTube. The theme for this year's moot will be professional and amateur, and here we are with Mr. Francesco Macri setting us off on that discussion that will form the basis of legal arguments among law students in this year's Football Law Annual Moot. That is just a simple reminder for you, and you could share the poster that you will find on our platforms to the students that may be interested. Mr. Macri, I don't think there are any questions that are coming through. I would definitely want to relieve you of your presentation duties, but we are really, really grateful. I would like to invite Mr. Jude from FLAM to give us the closing remarks for the evening on one, what the topic has been like, your presentation, and going forward with the activities for FLAM. Jude?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Mr. Francesco, for this wonderful topic. Yeah, we're happy to have you on board today, and it has been an insightful journey on this particular topic with you. Thanks to everyone who came around. Thanks to the host, Mr. Leon, the FLAM team. Yeah, let's keep in mind that the 3rd edition of the Football Law Annual Moot is going to be held in Lagos, Nigeria, the 1st week of December. So let's all have that in mind, and let's prepare ourselves for this particular journey. This topic has actually opened the door to our topic for this year, or the goal we are striving to achieve, the sensitization we want to put across in Africa and beyond, among students and amongst professionals. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming to this section. And on behalf of the Football Law Annual Moot, we appreciate and we hope we continue to spread the word of FLAM to everywhere we go to. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Francesco. Thank you for honoring us.
Thank you very much for this invitation. I was very pleased to receive it, and again, it was wonderful. I hope the presentation could be useful for the students to prepare their submission for the competition. And of course, I tried to summarize all the topics, and okay, could be somehow useful for this group. And let me say hello again to you all. Leon, Pius is online, and I see my dear colleague Davolazic. I'm very happy. And again, thank you, and have a lovely evening.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Francesco Macri. And from everybody else from the FLAM family, we are grateful. Thank you very much for being part of this session. There are very many more that will come through the rest of the year. Keep checking out on our platforms therein. For those that have missed this session, definitely you don't want to find Mr. Francesco Macri as the arbitrator when you are in the FLAM. But nonetheless, there's been plenty to learn. It's knowledge shared and very much extended. I'd love to wish you all a lovely rest of the week. Till we meet again, be well and be blessed.
Leon, my aim was not to give the solution to the case. It was not my intention.
Yeah, you've quite led us into where exactly we should be looking when the mood comes. But nonetheless, we are very grateful. Fantastic. Thank you very much, all of you.
Okay. Thank you very much again. Bye-bye.